Sarah, I did to you what I hate people doing to me, which is texting you links when we know we're going to be on the computer via your phone. Do you know what I'm saying? Like texting you shit on your phone when I know that we're going to meet on the computer. So then you got to dig that out and then you got to copy and paste.
It's a part of being a part of a John Kim production.
Exactly. Exactly. Catch me where you can. Okay. Who am I talking to? Well, she was marooned for 6 days in an underground cave with no food or light. With the challenge of navigating out, she spent 4 months solo walking the length of New Zealand with just a handful of supplies in a backpack. She also is an
Alpinist.
alpinist who summited the tallest mountain in North America unguided. She helps people to see and feel what's true through photography and to cultivate inner strength, creativity, and a love of the unknown through guided experiences with ice, breath, and movement in nature. Sarah Williams is a professional photographer, adventurer, and a coach, and she believes that our connection to nature is vital and sets out to inspire others to discover and strengthen that relationship. She is also my adventure coach and slash friend. I've known Sarah for years. You know, it's been really cool watching you because I feel like if where we met was high school, I feel like just because I'm older, I feel like I was a senior and you were a freshman. And now
Yeah.
we're all grown up. We've both graduated high school and we're all doing our thing. And it's been such a joy watching your character arc, watching, you doing things and then becoming a coach and then helping people. And now, one of the things you do is we partner on my retreat. So you're helping people in front of me. And I always, this is going to sound creepy. I always kind of feel like a proud father, maybe not father, maybe an uncle, a friend, just watching
Fun
you do your
uncle.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so where
Yes, well,
should we
thank you.
begin? Yeah, there is so much. It's not like it's so with you. It's not so much that you've done so much because you have, and I also love that you're a woman who have done these amazing things under the umbrella of adventure. But what's really impressive is how you live. So you were texting me the other day, and you're like, "Yeah, John, I'm in Utah," or I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on a mountain right now," and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Today you're in your bedroom, which is good.
Yes. Well, living room, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm home. I am where I call home right now, which is nice.
How
Yes.
did how did this whole thing start? At what point did you decide I'm going to run toward adventure and use nature and stuff like that to really as therapy?
I would say it started for me because I saw a lot of sadness around me. I grew up in places that
Mm,
I didn't necessarily connect with. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, which, as we know now, has incredible outdoor recreation. But at the time, I saw a lot of the bad side, the degenerate gambling and the drug
yeah.
addiction, just a lot of unhappiness in all of the adults around me. And I just didn't want that life for myself. And the only thing that I could kind of make sense of was the outdoor world. And so I started
Mm,
to find solace and a healing in nature. And I would also see how adults in my life would go into nature, and that would be the only time that they could feel alive or to feel a disconnect from the troubles of modernity. And so it was always
at
just like
what
a
age?
seed that was planted.
At what age did you kind of growing up in the concrete jungle, casinos? The whole thing is man made. So, at what age did you start gravitating toward nature?
I was always sheepishly attracted to it, but I wouldn't say it was until after college for me that I
Mm-hmm.
actually started to pursue it for myself. And so I always really resonated with the idea of it from a young age. And I was always really interested in sports stories that were leave it all out on the field, really giving it everything you got, putting yourself in crazy, unique situations and sort of testing yourself and testing your resolve. And so that was always really attractive to me, but I sat with
Mm-hmm.
it for a long time. Like I didn't act on it right away. And so I would say for years, I kind of just like felt like an internal calling that I quieted, that I didn't listen to because I didn't think
Mm,
I could. I didn't think it was for me. I didn't think I was athletic enough. I didn't think I just, it was a lot of like voices kind of doling me down.
sure.
And then kind of put at a certain point, it just that those quiet whispers became a scream. And then I've always just set my life up in a way to, from that point, listen to that, to not do things that wouldn't allow me to have the time and the space and the freedom to explore myself in a natural setting. And the healing that I received once I finally listened to that was so profound for me. And I followed it for quite a while. And then doing all those things that you mentioned. And then, of course, that lent itself to, wow, this was so incredible for me. How can I share this with others? How can I bring others into this? The people who I know that are suffering in my life, how can I, show them a door that hopefully they can walk through the same way that I did because it was so profound.
What was some of your first adventures that terrified you? Like now you have a lot of confidence because you've done a lot of things like um, being stuck, purposely stuck in a cave for many days, and walking New Zealand, which is pretty mind blowing. But and mountaintops and all that. And I know you've almost died. But what was the first thing that really kind of scared you that you quote unquote conquered?
I would say my very first overnight backpacking trip was really scary to me because it ended in search and rescue. My first like big
Mm,
outdoor experience like ended up I was in a situation. I went with three people into the woods, pretty forthcoming about the fact that like I didn't know what I was doing, and
mm-hmm,
they were like, "Oh, it's fine. Like we got you. We know everything." Long story short, they didn't know. They didn't have it, and so I was in a situation where one of them was slipping into shock from dehydration. We were like lost off the trail. We didn't know where we were, and I was terrified because like I don't know how to help this situation. Um,
mm,
but ended up taking all of our cell phones, climbing to the highest peak that I could, getting cell phone service to get rescue out. But it was one of those situations where I was so terrified because I didn't know how to help the situation. I didn't have the skills, the know how, anything. And, lives were kind of on the line at that point. And but it was, it ended up being just like a point, like a dot in my universe of, it was a turning point because instead of running away from that situation, I ran towards it, learned everything that I could to help me so that way I didn't have to face anything like that in the future. Or if I did, I would know how to handle it.
wow.
And um, so to kind of prove to myself that I wasn't that same person, I wanted to solo hike the John Muir Trail, which is a 220-mile trail from Yosemite Valley to Mount Whitney.
Mm.
And that was really scary for me because I was going alone by myself for 20 days into like the
Wait,
longest
that
wilderness
was your
trail in the
first
United
big
States.
thing? That was your first big thing? It's a
Yeah.
solo hike? Holy shit. Um, I didn't know you did that. So
Yeah.
you were what, in your 20s?
Yeah.
Early 20s?
Yeah. I was 25.
So the other thing that's amazing about you is, yes, you do some group things, but a lot of things that you do are solo, you know? It's pretty,
Yeah.
so like, I mean, just the things that could happen because you're alone and you don't have someone else to help you. I mean, that in itself already gives me panic. But so tell us about that. So the John Muir hike, your first big adventure, 200 and something miles by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the reason why I did and do a lot of things by myself initially, which is because I didn't have a lot of people to do it with. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to use that as an excuse to not. And ultimately, like the solo travel stuff has been like my favorite moments of my life because you are alone and you don't have somebody to rely on. So you have to find that kind of internal strength or, maneuvering in some way to get through it. But the very first night on the trail, I set up my tent and I was in it by 2 p.m. to force myself to fall asleep because I was so afraid to be alone at nighttime in the wilderness and all the animals and anything
Oh,
that could happen. So I was
shit.
like,
Yeah.
if I can just like fall asleep and be asleep, then I don't have to be scared. I can just fast forward to the morning and everything will be okay. But
Sarah,
it ended up being,
I'm
yeah.
a 50-year-old man who can't sleep in my backyard in a tent because of, things like raccoons and shit. So for you to be alone in Yosemite, in the middle of nowhere, and wanting to go to bed at 2 p.m. because, all the shit that could happen at night, that in itself is terrifying. Wow. So did
Yes.
you during the day you did the walking and hiking, and then you just went to bed early, and then, hoping you'd fall asleep, and then still be alive and not eaten?
That's correct. I mean, if like after day one, I was like, okay, that was a little aggressive. 2 p.m., and you find the comfort out there. And it's interesting because now I feel safer in those environments than I do walking around in Los Angeles just during the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a whole different set of of fears, but ultimately I'm more comfortable with the fears of the wilderness than I am the fears of living in a city in some
Mm,
respects. Somehow more dangerous. I mean, there's not going to be a wild animal in the city necessarily, but everything that you can think of that people deal with on a daily basis walking around, it's kind of nutty. But
let me
the
ask you
trail
this.
itself,
Well, before we move on, what revelations did you have about yourself or life um after this first big adventure?
yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, I had a lot of friends who talked to me before I went, who would say things like, "Oh, this is going to change your life. You're never going to be the same." And I was like, yeah, yeah, okay, cool. And even when I was on the trail, I was like, I'm looking around, I'm like, this is awesome, this is great, I love it, but I don't really see how this is gonna like change my life. And a lot of times it's only after that you really understand the ways in which these trips and these adventures change you. When you ask the same questions that you've been asking, except this time now you have different answers because you've gone through something. And for me, looking back, I can very easily say that that trip was the moment that I realized that I wanted to merge all these different passions that I have in my life. So, outdoor athleticism, healing, and photography, because that's what that trip was for me. I bought like a brand new little camera because I went to school for photography, but I didn't know what I wanted to capture. And so I brought a little camera with me on the trail and a journal. I'm a heavy journaler. And so I documented my process of transformation. And both with words and also with photographs, and then being able to bring both of those things back and to share the experience, I saw that how other people resonated with it, and how from that moment it was like, okay, like this is something that I want to inspire and help to let other people know that like it's to take time out of their life to maybe have some experiences that will allow them this sort of growth, and then to
Mm,
document it and to share with the people in their life. Because I think a lot of things that one of my biggest beliefs is that we don't have to save the world as an individual, but we can inspire our community, you can inspire your
right.
family, you can
Right.
inspire the people around you. And by me doing that, that's what I did for my small community. And then I love it because then people would say like, "Oh, I went and did this thing because I thought of you," and then my brother did it. Just I just love that little ripple effect. Like that's everything
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Yeah, I believe that purpose doesn't have to be this a giant bell that you hit at the end of the road. You don't have to change the world. You don't have to, fly people to Mars. Purpose can be just how you show up in your day to day, with your partner, your
Exactly.
friends, and that to me is street level purpose. That to me is sending a ripple, affecting people in your community, and so yeah, I don't. I think the world thinks that purpose has to be this big giant thing that you do, and you have to change the world. And no, I agree with you. I think sometimes people who impact other people are more under the radar, and people doing things in their community, churches, they're with their friends and stuff. So you said something that's really
Exactly.
interesting that I can relate to, and that is the tipping point of doing something scary, where because you and I both document in different ways, the documentation becomes the fuel, and now you see yourself more as a vessel, bringing back, whether it's photographs, journals, videos, some kind of content that's going to help other people, right? So I used blogging when I was going through my heartbreak, and
Yeah.
when you have that, you actually become fearless. So you're not just, because now you're not just going to explore nature, you're going knowing that when you come back to the village, not only will you be changed, but you can now share your change with the world. And so that's going to make you fearless, correct?
Exactly. And the things that I do, I know are quite out there for the average individual. I don't know many people who would happily and comfortably be marooned in a cave or climb the tallest mountains or just take 4 months away from your life to walk across a country. And so I am that person. And I'm going to have crazy, unique revelations and life lessons learned. And I like that job. Like, I'll be the person to go do those things. And then I will tell you about it so that you don't have to, but you can live vicariously through, or I can share with you something that you would never have been able to necessarily learn without either me going or you going, or just to share about the human experience and what's possible for us. I love that job.
It is there is the most difficult thing about doing these things is not so much the physical and mental aspect, but actually the loneliness, doing it alone? Or no? Do you feel like it's more like solitude?
So I've found solace in solitude. I think that it's very easy in life, especially in a big city, to feel like everyone in every direction is trying to make you think a certain way, to act a certain way, to buy a certain product. And it's very easy to get lost in that. And so I really enjoy myself. Even when I travel with friends, you're always kind of you're at the whim of other people in some way, like you're compromising, which is lovely, and I love that. But when you're truly alone with only the influence of the earth, you truly learn who you are. You have nobody trying to sell you anything, trying to convince you of a certain mindset. Like, you're left with yourself long enough for yourself to emerge. And so I've loved that aspect so much. But I would say, like, the hardest part of any of these experiences is stepping away from life, is leaving the society, is having the courage to not know what's going to happen, but to do it anyways. Because a lot of these things are a longer duration. So I've had to quit jobs, I've had to move out of apartments, I've really had to commit myself to them. They have not been easy or convenient in any way. And I think that because of that risk, the reward has always been extremely worth it and great. And the thing that I've learned the most, honestly, is that stepping away isn't that scary after all, because everything is the same when you come back. Aside
Mm,
from children, if you're raising children, it's very different. But the city is still running the same way. The TV shows are still
right,
the same. Everything,
right.
like, life and society, kind of just like stays the same. It's very consistent. And you go away and you become this crazy different person, and you've had just what feels like lifetimes of things happen in a short period of time, and you come back and everybody's sort of the same. Which is good, because it allows me to then next time have that realization, be like, okay, things are going to be okay. Like, when I come back, the world isn't going to end, things are going to change,
Hmm.
people aren't going to move away, families aren't going to disrupt, it's everything's consistent. But it's the hard thing to convince yourself to take that time and to leave and to just have the time for the experience. It's always the hardest.
Yeah. I want to highlight something you said, sitting with yourself long enough where yourself emerges. So, and I love that because I also feel like, and we'll talk about ice in a little bit, kind of, it's what happens in ice where you sit in it long enough where past the panic, past the fight or flight, you kind of come back to calm breath, and then a more honest version of you emerges. I mean, freezing your balls off, but still, there's there's almost like a what's the thing where people get possessed and then the what's it called, the pastors come and they
Exorcism.
shake, yeah, it's like an exorcism, it's like an exorcism, a mini exorcism. I don't know
I
if that's
mean,
a good way to sell
you're
it,
not wrong.
yeah, yeah.
Probably not, but
And I would assume that these adventures you go on that are epic, in a way, they're like long, stretched out versions of that, where you come back, even if it's a little different. I mean, you've seen things, you've experienced things. There's a lot of stuff happening, and then you come back different. You come back, yeah. It's almost an exorcism. Hey, the big one that I always brag about, just because it's one of those adventures that I can't, like I said, I can't even pitch a tent in my backyard and go camping. Um, in a cave, and this was a part of a TV show. You were in a cave for many days. Uh, infrared cameras, so dark you could, can't even see the hand in front of you. Not much water, food, and you lose sense of time. You're by yourself. Um, and the show is basically who could stay in there the longest, and there were all these, Marines and qualified people who can do this, and here you are. Um, the I would say the underdog on paper, and I
Absolutely.
believe either you won or you came in the top one, two, three. I don't remember what happened, but tell us about that experience.
Yeah, it was exactly as you described. It was a survival experiment for the Discovery Channel where they would take people of different who were, outdoor survivalists, Marines, like all sorts of folk, and place them in a pitch black cave alone,
Hmm.
with the idea that you had to navigate yourself out of the cave. And so you could meet other people, you could team up, or you might not. And you had 6 days to navigate out of the cave. Otherwise, you would lose the experiment. And exactly as you said, I was 100% the underdog. The PAs on the set, they would have a bet each episode, like, oh, who's gonna
Oh,
chicken
I
out the
love it.
most, or who's gonna
Yeah.
get out. And then so I had heard that, of course, like little blonde girl from Los Angeles, how is she gonna do in this? And so
Right.
everybody, of course, is like, oh, she's gonna quit after 4 hours. Just watch. And so going into it, I had extreme imposter syndrome because I had heard
Mm,
about the accolades of everybody who was going to be a part of this, and I was like, that's not me. Like, I had just gone through that experience where I was rescued in the wilderness, and so I had learned a lot, and I felt like I was ready, and this was definitely a test. But also, I was like, this is a big deal. This is a big time
yeah.
situation, and I have no idea what it's going to be like, how I'm going to react, like once I meet that moment, and who I'm going to be. Like, I don't know. I've never been in that situation. Am I going to freak out? Am I not? Um, and it was just one of those moments where, like, they were interviewing me before the cave, and I was just like shaking. I was like, I don't belong here. I didn't doubt my ability in there, but I was just like comparing myself to everybody else around me. And so I got in there, and they put us in isolation for a little while, and they're like, okay, so stay in this room, and then we're gonna leave. Don't don't move until you hear from us again. I was like, okay, they're probably just like positioning us in the cave, and then they're gonna like radio or shout to us like, okay, the experiment begins.
Hmm.
um so I was like, in this moment, like in that pitch black that you described, like can't see your hand in front of your face, like your eyes, I'm sure, just massive, trying to see any form of light. And the only light that I saw the entire time was as a dab of static electricity, like a little jolt, which was really cool to see, by the way, the light of that. But just completely nothing. And so I was like, okay, like I just kind of have to keep my attitude up. Like my attitude is everything. And so I was wearing a helmet, so I was like practicing headstands. I was like doing some like air squats and like very light exercise because it was also very cold. And so I was like,
Hmm.
how, like, I'm not eating anything, so I want to like keep myself warm, but I don't want to have a huge caloric expenditure.
Right.
um, and it ended up being 2 whole days in that isolation, in that confinement, if you will, before they even let us start moving about the cave. And I was like whistling, I was like singing songs, I was just trying really hard to just like keep my internal world alive, because
Wait, did
ultimately,
you
like,
did
I
you
know,
actually did you sleep at all or no?
tried, right? And so like during that time, I would be like, okay, so like I think it's time to sleep now. And you're like, it's a ice cold ground. And so anytime that you lay on it, like your body heat is just being stolen from you. But what's cool about it is that when you sleep, you don't know how long it's been. You have no measure to gauge time. You don't have a
Yeah.
watch, you don't have the sun in the sky, um, nothing. And it's not you don't wake up feeling like rejuvenated, because it's not like you're sleeping at like a Holiday Inn with like amazing thread count sheets, right? Like it's a cold
Hmm.
ground. So you're like, was I asleep for 10 minutes? Was I asleep for an hour? Was it 4 hours? You don't know. And so very early on in the experience, I was just like, I have to not even think about time. Time is no longer relevant. Time does not exist. It is not anything. And that was also one of the most beautiful aspects of it, was that I was able to have an experience where time was so irrelevant. That it just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a part of it. And when is that the case? Like in our lives, like everything is always on a
Yeah.
schedule, everything is
Right.
day, night, of course, like that's just what it is to be a human, your circadian rhythms. But in this experience, that was gone, and your sight was gone. And so these other gauges of measure and your senses like came completely alive. And that's why I speak about this experience so positively, is because it gave me such a unique human experience to like understand my body and my mind in a way that I would have never been able to. And luckily I'm very comfortable with both of those things. And I've cultivated such an internal, I don't know, strength of mind and positive attitude that has allowed me to be successful in these types of situations, for sure.
Um, what was your greatest takeaway coming out of the cave after you came home? What did you take away, or was that it? The power of your mind body connection, or what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a combination of all of those things. Absolutely that. I mean, from that trip, I definitely got invested a little bit more into spirituality and what that means for me, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and how seeing isn't believing, but feeling is, and
Mm,
how utilizing
yeah.
like my body as a metric for a gauge of everything in life through intuition and through just straight feeling. And that was a really big catapult for me, just in the sense of my self confidence as well. Because I went into it, as I described earlier, just so unconfident. So there was so much imposter syndrome with comparing myself to everybody around me, because on paper I wasn't the same as them, and so I belittled myself in my mind. But ultimately at the end of the experience, like I was in me and one other person were the ones to get out. And grown people of serious accolades quit after 12 hours. And so
Yeah.
it really gave me a belief in myself that allowed me to then tackle greater challenges from that point forward.
I would be out by lunch if I couldn't Grubhub something to the cave. I'd be like, all right, I'm out.
This
So
is
let's
one of the reasons
switch.
why I think it's real quick. I think
Yeah.
I you're so, I love you as a friend. This is so great. This is like the dynamic between us, like in nature, and just like how
Yeah. Of
different we
course.
are towards these things,
Yeah.
is just like the most comedic relief of everything. It's the best.
I grew up in Los Angeles in the city, and I was never exposed to nature. My dad never took me camping, not one time. I mean, I don't know anything about. Um, I think my first outdoor experience wasn't until like I was in my 30s, and that's why it's like it's a different planet for me. I've had no experience in it. I mean, that's why when like our mutual friend Andy tricked me, and I was on the side of a mountain. Like, I don't. It's like throwing someone. I mean, I don't even know what that's like. It's like throwing an alien, into like a fucking elementary school and being like, "Hey, here are the lockers." I have no idea. And so, um, I've always been scared of obviously animals. Um, I can't pick up animals. I can't. I just. I don't know. It's very. So I'm very. But what I do, what I am attracted to in the bridge to nature is machines. So I've always been a gearhead. Since BMX bikes and skating, I've always loved pedaling something. Something with an engine. And so if you add dirt bikes, one of the things that Andy and I are thinking about doing is riding jet skis from Long Beach to Catalina, which is a
Oh
couple
wow.
hours. But like I would never swim. Like you give me $1 million, I would be too terrified to swim, even if I was in a cage. And I know there's probably no sharks in that area, but on a jet ski now, you put an engine between my legs. Now I'm down, and that gets me really excited. So my way into nature is always going to be through some kind of machines, getting dopamine that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, camping. If I don't have anywhere to plug in my blow dryer, I'm probably not going to enjoy it. So yeah, that's what's really.
but
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 this is why I need you, because you provide a lot of experiences that I have never given myself, or probably won't.
But what you said is so great, and I love that. Is that the thing is even though you had the experience that you did living in Los Angeles growing up, you found your way into nature. Like even your motorcycle
Mm,
rides, like along the Angeles
yeah.
Crest or in Malibu, like that is experiencing nature. It's different in the way that I might, especially
Right.
earlier on. But
Right.
and that's one of my biggest beliefs in life is that like nature is our home. Like there's no person that it doesn't belong to it. And so the thing is just to take the time to explore what that means to you or to find what that
Hmm.
is. And you have. And so like you can find that flow state in those moments in that, and that's everything. And so, and that's what suits your lifestyle. And that's like, if I
Right.
could give one message to everybody, it's just to find what that is for them. Like it could
Sure.
be
It
golfing, it
doesn't.
could be like painting
Right.
pictures of nature. Like it's just like there's something there for everybody.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit. In the Miserable Fucks retreat, and you have been to every single one. I run some for Just Men. I run COED. Tell us about what you do. So, if you're not someone who's going to go on, some crazy 4 month hike, or you're not going to go into the woods or into dark spaces for many days, the Miserable Fucks retreat is a great little taster spoon. It's a little red spoon at the ice cream store to taste something before you buy the and Sarah leads the adventure piece to the retreat, um which is huge because we're in the woods, right? So you do the guided hike, you do breath and a little bit of breath, and then you do ice. So tell us about starting with ice. Tell us about it and what the benefits are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you described it so perfectly that these are a wonderful little tasters into something larger and in community in a group in Idlewild. And so I run the ice portion of the retreat. And ice is something that I've used over the years to help me get closer to myself and also to just become a more resilient person for these experiences that I'm having in my life and in nature. And I think it's really important to have them to be a part to experience it at some point in life. And right now ice is really popular, and which for wonderful reason, because there's just so many different aspects of it that you can cling to. There are numerous studies coming out now about the different aspects of of the ice on your body. For I mean, it's been known for a long time, like recovery, depending on the type of training that you're doing. For endurance training, immediate recovery from the ice is absolutely incredible. There's a lot of interesting data on testosterone levels and the ice, especially in aging, and also really interesting studies on delaying um, symptoms of Alzheimer's, which I think is fascinating. But then also just in terms of like body composition and fat loss, there's all sorts of stuff there. But for me, the one thing that I've always been really drawn to is the mental benefits of the ice, because nobody loves the ice. I don't care who you are, nobody loves it, right? It's always hard every single time, and it's not a linear progression. Just
Right.
because you've done it once or twice doesn't mean like, or 17 times and you take a month off, like when you come back to it, it's going to be hard every time. Like you don't, it's not like getting muscle and getting stronger. It's just like, it's going to knock you out almost every time. And so, I find that, how you react to the ice and how you handle the ice and what comes up for you in the ice runs parallel to the hard decisions and the hard moments in your life. How do you approach them? Do you avoid them at all costs? Like do you try to numb yourself to it? And I think that being in the ice, if you pay attention to your inner dialogue, you can really learn a lot about who you are. But then also, it's in the hard moments that you have to, like, the shifts that you create ripple into your life. So, and that's why I love the ice, because when you're in there, there is nowhere to hide. There is no way to numb. You are so present. And when you're in there, so then you're in that moment, you're present, you're panicking. Then if you take yourself and you learn how to control your mind and your body through your breath in the ice, you gain control over yourself in a way that makes you feel more comfortable to deal with situations in your life where you might feel out of control. So, like difficult conversations, moments of extreme emotion, you then have that practice of bringing up your parasympathetic nervous system and calming your body, calming your state to then make wiser decisions in the moment as it's happening. And I think that's extremely powerful.
I'm shocked that, we've ran this retreat 4 or 5 times now, and I always assume that people aren't going to do it. And it's shocking to me that everyone does it. I don't think that we've had one person not do it. Not everyone stays in, for 3 minutes, but everyone does it. And I think it's the power of community. It's a power of,
Exactly.
the collective rooting and cheering. So if you haven't done ice, and you probably never will, if you come to our retreat, it's a great way to actually do it, where you're not by yourself and you're not forcing it. You're also learning the science behind it. So yeah, and then you also, you do a guided hike, which is therapeutic, meaning there's journaling involved. So you're not just walking. There's intention, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And just going back to what you said about the community aspect of the ice for one second, that is one of my favorite parts about it, is that there's this unspoken aspect of performance behind it. And what I mean by that is, everybody's watching you, and that can be intimidating. Everybody's watching you do something that's really scary, and you're going to react in a certain way. But the thing is like everybody is so loving and kind and giving of strength. So when you're in there, you feel that. And it's so much easier in life to do hard things when you do it on a team. When you have a group of people, it gives it meaning, it makes it easier, and you just prove more to yourself. And so that's why I love at the retreat, is because everybody's there with you and you're with them. Like you see them and they see you, and you feel seen after that. And that carries on over into the guided hike. And kind of going back to like what I was saying earlier, it's like we're doing it together, but there's this certain aspect of being alone too. And I always give everybody some time to kind of go off and to be alone, to be bored, to allow something to come through, or the hope that something will come through when you're not just bored. So you look at your phone or you get distracted, or I encourage people to be childlike, to climb a tree, to look at a pine cone, to play with the dirt, to just do whatever is interesting to them at the moment. And it's different for everybody. Some people that's to sit in silent meditation. For some people that's to climb a tree. But that's the point, is to allow like whatever you want to do. Because I feel like a lot of times we're given a lot of like confines, and it's kind of nice to just have total freedom and to see what you choose to do with that. And in addition to that, I photograph and I video the retreat. And that's one of my favorite aspects, is to give people photographs of themselves after the retreat is over. Because the way that I photograph, it's so, I don't know, the way that I like to describe it is lovingly fly on the wall. So not like
Yeah.
I'm removed, but it's like it's an admiration removal. And it's like I'm looking at everybody at the retreat like with such loving eyes, to find the beauty in them, to to show them, be like, look at who you were in this moment, look at the strength that you just exhibited, for them to then keep with them after the retreat, to remember. Because that's one of the things about retreats, is that it's great to go and have the experience, but then when you come back into your life, you kind of maybe get back into the shuffle, and then those memories kind of fade. But I think like having images, having journal entries from the different experiences at the retreat from the different leaders, having little artifacts to carry with you, to remember who you were in that moment, to be inspired to live that continuously, not just at the retreat, but when it's over. And I think that's what makes the Miserable Flex retreat so powerful, is that there are those little mementos, there are those little things too, that you can carry with you. So that way you can continue to have that in your life. And I've had a couple people reach out to say that, like, oh, I can't believe how powerful 3 days were. Like, I never expected it to have quite that impact. And that's such a testament to like the team of coaches that we have there. It's such a beautiful blend of people,
Hmm.
and it's unique in that way. It's somatic, but then it's also therapeutic, it's group, it's hikes, it's everything. And so I've been a part of a lot of experiences, of people trying to provide wellness in group settings, but this just really hits the nail on the head. And
Yeah.
I'm so proud to be a part of it, and so honored to share that space with anybody who decides to join us.
A lot of things that happen kind of seamlessly, organically, and you're not really thinking about like, money or scaling or profit, but you're just doing it because your heart feels like you should. And that's how this whole thing happened. Always turns out the best. And I put everything in a shot glass in this retreat. I love that it's kind of like a Snickers bar. It's just packed with, peanut, just packed with so much over the weekend. So it is, it's not a 1 week long, get on a plane, go somewhere fancy. It's just a weekend in Idlewild. And I do that on purpose, and it feels very summer campy. And what I love about what Sarah does with the documentation, she has such a great eye. It's very filmic, the stuff that she does. She captures moments, right? So it's not about capturing like a really cool photo. She captures moments, which is very honest. And then she sends you the photographs, or a few photographs, via snail mail. And I feel like in this world of technology and AI and all the shit that's happening, to hold a photograph in your hand, it just so like analog, but in a good way. And so thank you for being a part of the team. Thank you for being such a powerful catalyst. I love watching you do your thing as you continue to grow. And if you want to meet Sarah and hear, go deeper on, ask her in person about some of her adventures. And also, if you want to do ice for the first time and have someone like Sarah guide you, we're not just throwing people on ice. She's guiding each person, so it's really crafted. Come check out our Miserable Flux retreat. We're doing one June 24th to the 26th, and if you have a motorcycle, Sarah and I and a few friends are going after the retreat on motorcycles from Idlewild to Joshua Tree. That part is free. It's just, we're just adding it on to have a just to celebrate, adventure in life. And I'll tell you what, if you're listening now, because I really want you to come, let me give you a discount code. So if you're listening, you're getting this discount code. It's only for this retreat, June 24th to 26th. Nectar. It's all about seeking nectar. So all caps Nectar, and just go to tatretreats.com, and at checkout type in Nectar, and we will see you there in person, and you can meet Sarah, and she'll take awesome photographs of you, as well as submerge you in ice, take you on a nature walk. It's life-changing. And so, yeah, we hope to see you there. Sarah, thank you for this conversation. And the reminder.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for the reminder to, if anything, if you got anything out of this conversation, it's the reminder to get out away from the cubicle, away from your computer, and in the way that you do it, however you do it. For me, it takes a machine, but get into nature in some way.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, I do something kind of different on my podcast. I try to come up with a title after the podcast with the guest. So in real time, what do you think the title of this episode should be? What words come to your mind? Darkness, heights, ice.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's funny because like the words that come to mind is just like literally what you just said. And I know that you use that phrase a lot, but like the seeking nectar is just, I don't know, so
okay,
apropos
that's
here.
fine.
I feel like
Seeking Nectar with Sarah Williams. Everyone, thank you for listening. Be well.